Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we are looking at Isaiah 18 to Isaiah 22. And rather than sweep over the whole thing, I just want to hit a couple high points here. The first thing in Isaiah 19 and 20. Basically, there's going to be a lot of thoughts about Egypt that Isaiah is speaking about Egypt. And the unique thing that he is saying is basically there's going to be this time of judgment and civil war because they are far from God. Yesterday, we were talking a lot about how God exists for God's glory. And so when he judges nations, sometimes he judges nations that he used to judge other nations. Here, God is going to judge Egypt for its unfaithfulness to himself. However, there is kind of this coming truth of Egypt that is that Egypt will be a place where God is honored, where God is worshiped. And even further than that, there's going to be kind of this unique relationship between Assyria, Israel, and Egypt all existing together peacefully. They have roads. There's literally a highway between them, so that they can worship God together peacefully. Now, when Isaiah would have said this, this would have been very crazy. Very like these nations are literally fighting each other. Egypt kind of at this time is in a lot of turmoil and chaos. Israel tries to get help from Egypt. Assyria is fighting Israel. Like all of this would have seemed crazy. But what's cool is that there's some truth. Well, there's a lot of truth in Isaiah 19 and 20 because Egypt was in fact in kind of a civil war at this time. Egypt was, in fact, pretty much destroyed shortly after this. So in Isaiah's lifetime, he saw a lot of this come to pass. Probably the most wild verse in this series of verses is verse 24. So this is chapter 19, verse 24. In that day, Israel will be the third with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the earth, whom the Lord of hosts has blessed, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance. What a wild thing for the Israelites, the people in Judah. What a wild thing for them to hear that God is going to bless these three nations together, and he's going to speak of them in very high terms. A lot of the Israelites would have wanted to hold God for themselves, even though they weren't obedient to him. And so this would have been kind of a scandalous prophecy, but it speaks to God's heart for the nations. I like to bring attention to it every time I can, that God in the Old Testament did not exist just to prosper Israel. Right here in Isaiah 19, 18 and 19, we're seeing that God has a heart here for Egypt, Assyria, and Israel because God is calling people from all nations to himself. He's continuing to do that. When Jesus comes on the scene, Jesus is kind of bringing Israel to himself. Then Paul is bringing the gospel to the Gentiles. And today there's neither Jew nor Gentile. We are all worshiping the Lord together, united under Christ. So that's pretty cool that we can see that in Isaiah 19 and 20. I do want to focus also on Isaiah 22 because Isaiah 22 has some really cool things in it that we can actually prove with archaeology and with history. And I love pointing out stuff like that. So in Isaiah 22, there's this oracle against Jerusalem. And basically what's happening is there's a judgment against, again, people who aren't faithful to the Lord. But specifically, God is saying, hey, I caused the Assyrians to relent when they came up against you. And I thought you were going to weep and moan and fast and seek me, but instead you became prideful in your own efforts. So if you look at chapter 22, let's start in verse 8. In that day you looked to the weapons of the house of the forest, and you saw that the breaches of the city of David were many. You collected the waters of the lower pool, and you counted the houses of Jerusalem, and you broke down the houses to fortify the wall. You made a reservoir between the two walls for the water of the old pool, but you did not look to him who did it, or see him who planned it long ago. It's this idea that the people in Jerusalem could see the invaders coming, and so they prepared well for the invaders and were able to be defended. In this period of time, Hezekiah would have been the king. During Hezekiah's time, you can see this in 2 Kings. There was a giant tunnel that was basically dug under the ground from the Gihon spring, which would have been outside the walls, into the pool of Siloam, which would have been inside the walls. And so you can literally go to Israel today, you can go to Jerusalem, and you can walk through Hezekiah's tunnel. There's actually an inscription that they found inside the tunnel, kind of describing the work that had been done. And it has been dated to like 700, 800 BC, which is exactly this period of time. And so this is a real thing. It is recorded in Second Kings. It's also alluded to here in Isaiah 22. And basically what the Lord is revealing through Isaiah is that it was foolish of the people to basically like count themselves as the cause for their defense. Because at this time they dug this tunnel and they also tore down houses so that they could build bigger walls. And God is saying, hey, like ultimately, I am the one who defended you, but you didn't seek me. You took glory in yourselves. And so this is actually an indictment against Israel that cites Hezekiah's tunnel, which you can go and see today. It's a real place. It's full of water. Actually, sometimes you'll be in water up to your chest if you go through the tunnel. The second really interesting thing is there's this condemnation against a royal steward. His name is Shebna. So Shebna is this guy that's over the household of the king. He would have been doing a lot of the king's business, making a lot of decisions for the king. And in chapter 22, verse 16, it says, "What have you to do here, and whom have you here, that you have cut out here a tomb for yourself, and you have cut out a tomb on the height, and carve a dwelling for yourself in the rock? Behold, the Lord will hurl you away violently, O you strong man. He will seize firm hold of you and whirl you around and throw you like a ball into a wide land. There you shall die, and there shall be your glorious chariots, you shame of your master's house. I will thrust you from your office, and you will be pulled down from your station. In that day, I will call my servant Eliakim." So kind of this idea that God is going to take Shebna from his office because of his pride in himself, and he's going to put Eliakim in his place. Now, what's interesting about this is that God is basically indicting him for creating this ornate tomb up on the heights and bringing glory to himself. Well, in 1870, they actually discovered this super ornate tomb that had an inscription above it that most likely carried Shebna's name. There's a little bit of controversy about the specific name, but it is a royal steward's tomb that is very ornate and would have existed to draw attention to himself instead of God, instead of the king. That the inscription that was written above this tomb is the same type of inscription that was found in Hezekiah's tunnel, and both have been dated around the same time. So it's really interesting and really faith affirming that Isaiah 22 has two archaeological things that we have discovered, that we can visit, that we can look at Isaiah 22 and know that these places being referenced are real. They exist today. And because of that, it just causes us to trust the text. Like what Isaiah said in Isaiah 22 is what can be proven to be real by archaeology and history. I mean, you can travel to Israel and you can see these things. Ultimately, what's crazy is this royal tomb is empty because Shebna was carried into exile, most likely, when the Babylonians attacked and carried off all the people. So when Isaiah is talking about the people being hurled away, most likely this is exactly what happened to Shebna, and this prophecy is fulfilled. So I know not everybody is into history and archaeology, but every time that I can see that something is spoken about in the Bible is proven by something that can either be visited or dug out of the ground or discovered, that to me just leads me to trust the Bible even more. So Isaiah 22 literally references two things that we can locate, we can believe are true because you can actually go visit them. And Isaiah 18 and 19 actually have a lot to say about Egypt that did also become true. So every time I read something in the Bible like that, it just leads me to trust God more and believe what God says even more. So I just encourage you to continue to believe the Lord in your life, continue to be obedient to Him, continue to be committed to Him. We can trust that what He has revealed is in fact correct and true. And because of that, we can believe that all the things that he has revealed are true. He will be faithful to his promises. He will be faithful to us when we are faithful to him. We'll be back again tomorrow. We'll see you then.
Thanks so much for listening to God's Plan, Your Part. If anything stuck out to you, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to receive a Bible, you can email us at godsplanyourpart@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us through the link in our description. We love that you're on this journey with us, and we hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.